Kunja Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivanadari Gopijana Vallabha Girivanadari Yashoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tiravanachari Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivanadari Gopijana Vallabha Girivanadari Yashoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tiravanachari Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jayom Vishnupad Paramahamsa Pravikadrajacharya Shvatar Shatashi Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Hare Krishna Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Alright, so today reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 9, Text 39. Okay, so the word for word. Antarhita Indriya Hartaya Haraye Vihita Anjalihi Sarva Bhuta Mayaha Vishvam Sasarja Idam Saha Purvat Antarhitendriyartaya Harye Vihitan Jalahi Sarvabhutamayo Vishwam Sasarjedam Sapurvavat Atarhi Tendriyartaya Hariye Vihitanjalahi Sarvabhutamayo Vishwam Sasarjedam Sapurvavat Antarhi Tendriyartaya Hariye Vihitanjalihi Sarvabhutamayo Vishwam Sasarjedam Sapurvavat Marji? Okay. All right, so word for word. Antarhita, on the disappearance. Indriya, Artaya, under the personality of Godhead, the objective of all senses. Hariye, unto the Lord. Vihita, Anjalihi, enfolded hands. Sarvabhuta, all living entities. Mayaha, full of. Vishvam, the universe. Sasarja, created. Idam, this. Saha, he. Brahmaji. Purvavat, exactly like before. Okay, so translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. On the disappearance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hari, who is the object of transcendental enjoyment for the senses of devotees, Brahma, with folded hands, began to recreate the universe, full with living entities as it was previously. Purport. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hari, is the object for fulfilling the senses of all living entities. Illusioned by the glaring reflection of the external energy, the living entities worship the senses instead of engaging them properly in fulfilling the desires of the Supreme. In the Hari Bhakti Sudodaya, there is the following verse. Akshno phalam twadrisha darshanam hi, tano phalam twadrisha gatra sangaha, jiva phalam twadrisha kirtanam hi, shudurlabha bhagavata hi loke. O devotee of the Lord, the purpose of the visual sense is fulfilled simply by seeing you, and to touch your body is the fulfillment of bodily touch. The tongue is meant for glorifying your qualities, because in this world a pure devotee of the Lord is very difficult to find. Originally, the senses of the living entity were awarded for this purpose, namely to engage them in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, or that of his devotees. But the conditioned souls, illusioned by the material energy, become captivated by sense enjoyment. Therefore, the whole process of God consciousness is meant to rectify the conditional activities of the senses and to re-engage them in the direct service of the Lord. Lord Brahma thus engaged his senses in the Lord by recreating the conditioned living entities to act in the recreated universe. This material universe is thus created and annihilated by the will of the Lord. It is created to give the conditioned souls a chance to act, to return home, back to Godhead. And servants like Brahmaji, Naraji, Vyasaji, and their company become busy with the same purpose of the Lord, to reclaim the conditioned souls from the field of sense gratification and return them to the normal stage of engaging the senses in the service of the Lord. Instead of doing so, i.e. converting the actions of the senses, the impersonalists began to make the conditioned souls senseless, and the Lord also senseless. That is improper treatment for the conditioned souls. The disease condition of the senses may be treated by curing the defect, but not uprooting the senses altogether. When there is some disease in the eyes may be cured to see properly. Plucking out the eyes is no treatment. Similarly, the whole material disease is based on the process of sense gratification, and liberation from the disease condition is re-engagement of the senses to see the beauty of the Lord, hear his glories, and act on his account. Thus, Brahmaji created the universal activities again. Om Jnana Timanandasya Gananjanjana Shalakaya Chakshorotamina Tashmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Datati Swampadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shukta Parakamalam Shingarum Vaishtamam Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raganaptam Vitam Tam Shajivam Savadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saritam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Vadan Sagalanaditam Shri Vishakamitam Cha Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vikas Swaminiti Namane Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharine Nivishesha Shuni Vani Pashkataris Tarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhupada Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So, Antarhi Tindriyartaya Hareye Vihitanjalihi Sarvabhuta Mayo Vishwam Sasarjedam Sapurvabat. On the disappearance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hari, who is the object of transcendental enjoyment for the senses of devotees, Brahmaji, with folded hands began to recreate the universe, full with living entities as it was previously. You see that? You're saying turn up the volume. I'm live. Okay. So Brahmaji. So I had thought a little bit, but I didn't have so much time to do research and into this point because I got a little bit busy, and it's kind of like a small detail. But from what I understand, I'm not 100% sure, but it is probably mentioned in these. It seems like it, but anyways. But it seems like this particular instance with Brahma is that it's another day that he's about just to recreate the the universe, that it may not be its first time. I'm not 100% sure. I could be wrong on that, because also in the third canto, there's a similar instance of Brahma creating the material world. And that one for sure, it seems like it's like the first one, because there's like partial destructions, but then there's a full destruction at the end of Brahma's life. But in the beginning, there's like the creation. That's my understanding. There's like the creation of like, Shiva and the four Kumaras and all those things. But anyways, whatever the case is, as far as the details go on that, so Brahma he prayed for the Lord's mercy to engage in his service of recreating the material world, as far as we hear his description, his complicated service of creating different living entities, and then engaging those living entities and populating the universe. And it's a difficult task, because we see even with that as is mentioned in the third canto, that Brahma is just simply trying to carry out his duties, but a couple of his sons, they refused to accept his order to fill the universe with progeny, the four Kumaras. And Brahma gets angry about that, though he tries to hide it. So there's a couple things we can understand from that. But specifically is that no matter what act service or what our position may be in the material world, there'll be difficulties in executing out that service or that or that work. You would think that Brahma, being the topmost living entity, I mean, even when we hear of Hiranyakashipu taking over the universe, it wasn't that Brahma was under his subjugation. He didn't, for some reason or other, it doesn't seem like living entities can just march into Swargaloka and just conquer it. You don't really usually hear them going that far. Usually they capture, they take over the palace of Indra. Just like we see in the 8th canto, similarly with Bali Maharaj and the Devatas, that Bali Maharaj took over the heavenly planets. So generally, at least from what I've understood in Shastra, there isn't really so many instances of living entities coming in and taking over the Swargaloka, the Brahma's planet, Brahmaloka. So Brahma was angered by that, and we also see too that even if one may be in the topmost position in the material world, one is still subject to anger. And we also see too that Brahma was also subject to lustful feelings, anger, bewilderment. The position of Brahma, though it's the topmost in the material world, is still if one is obviously not a pure devotee, one is conditioned by the laws of material nature. There's no getting around that. So we may, what to think of, we may think that my position in this material world would be better if, I was over here or over there in this position or that position. I'm just a bhakta, but if I was a guru, everybody would look up to me. Or, I'm first initiated. If I was second initiation, life would be better because, I could do this, that, the other thing. Or, if I'm second initiated and, if I could just be the temple president, I would be better. If I was the temple president, if I wasn't temple president, life would be better. We may think that so many things may be better. But the thing is that as long as we're in this material world and we're not purified in Krishna consciousness, whatever situation we're going to be in, we're going to be influenced by the material energy. So the best situation is that whatever situation we're in Krishna consciousness, we should endeavor to the best of our ability to be fully Krishna conscious and to, whatever work we have to carry out, pray for the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead to execute that work and execute it for His pleasure. So this particular purport and text is, this purport is highlighting 2 points. Well, not 2 points, but at least one thing that stuck out to me. Prabhupada is highlighting the point of we have these senses, these indriyas. And that's a common word found so much throughout Srila Prabhupada's books in the Bhagavad Gita. And I won't get so much into that. But just kind of keeping it basic is that, we have these senses, and Prabhupada highlights to point out that, so we have these senses, and then so the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hari, is the object for fulfilling the senses of all living entities. So he he fulfills whatever desires that we have, but also he's not only does he fulfill desires, but he's the senses find fulfillment within him, either directly or indirectly. Indirectly, the senses are so-called satisfied in the material energy. But when the senses are engaged in the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the senses are satisfied and happy, complete, or whatever. Not senses aren't happy, but because we identify with when we identify the body as a self, then we feel happy when we get sense gratification. But when we understand our true position as Nitya Siddha Krishna Das, as a spiritual part and parcel of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, when we understand that is our identity, then we feel happy when the senses are engaged in the service of the Lord, because our identity is properly situated. So, in the second sentence, Prabhupada goes the other direction, which makes, by illusion, by the glaring reflection of the external energy, the living entities worship the senses instead of engaging them properly and fulfilling the desires of the Supreme. And I thought that was interesting, that the way Srila Prabhupada said that. The living entities worship the senses. And it's interesting, because most people, they won't, if you flat, and sometimes we Srila Prabhupada writes in a certain way, and we have a certain, I guess you could say, slang in ISKCON, or, the devotional society, sense gratification, modes of material nature, whatever, dude, you're like moded out, when you go and tell people that on the street, like, you're in so much, you're in Tamagun like crazy or something, or like, you just engage in sense gratification. It's like people don't really understand that. So you have to like break it down for them what that means. But worship's another one of those things. If we go out there and tell people on the street, you just worship your senses, and then people be like, what do you mean to just worship my senses? And it's like I don't worship anything, I'm an atheist, but they don't. The thing is that this worship is that they place so much emphasis on sense gratification, and they do it just naturally, because they're in the conditional stage of life. When one is in the pure state of life, one naturally just utilizes his senses and everything for the pleasure of Krishna, and we see that with pure devotees. But in the conditional stage of life, it's the one that has that, that spontaneous, well, some people do. Some people are just so fired up for sense gratification, and then they'll stay up days on end, just trying to squeeze every little bit of happiness they can out of their senses, or whatever it is. And there's so many different arrangements for sense gratification for people to enjoy. And that's seen as a good thing in society, If something's good for your senses, just, go ahead and do it. If it feels good, do it. That's like, that sounds like good philosophy. It sounds nice to hear. If it feels good, do it. It's like, oh yeah, I love it. The people love to hear that. Yeah, if it feels good, just do it. Okay. And then it's just whatever. And that's the philosophy. It's like, what do you want to do tonight, man? I don't know. It just feels good. Let's do it, man. And it's like, all right, And then that can go like so many different ways of how the night can go or whatever. And then there's so much different cultures that's just based around that. And then things can get violent. And then there's so many crazy things which are on the news about, people with the feel good. If it feels good, do it. And people, then they also think too, like we understand from that I don't know if Prabhupada makes the point in this purport, but the senses were given, I think he does, but anyways, I'm not going to go read the exact sentence, but he makes the point that the senses were given by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So the understanding is that the senses were not our senses just to enjoy independently, that they're bestowed upon us. And anything that's given, just like if, some senior or family member or whatever gives us a car to borrow, it's not our car to do whatever we want. Or the temple, we go take the temple car and we think, oh, it's my car, so I'm going to go where I want and do what I want and like that. But it's the car is given for a particular reason to execute whatever activities are needed to be executed. But people have this conception that it's my senses, and then we see that it's my body, my choice. That's one of the famous mantras chanted by people that are pro-abortion or whatever. So the thing is that it's in a sense it's not it's not this material body that we have is not our body. It's a body that's given to us, and we're borrowing it. We're utilizing the ingredients, and so the point of the material body is for us to utilize this body that we have in the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, to rectify, to utilize our intelligence, atato brahma jignasa, to understand what is Brahman. And Brahman is the Krishna explains in the Bhagavad Gita that he is, what is this, that verse? I can't, you only remember that verse? It's in the 10th chapter. It's Pravitram, no, that's not it. Param Dhamma, Param Brahma, Pravitram, Param Brahma. So Krishna explains that he is the Brahman. So the point of inquiry is to inquire into the nature of the Absolute, specifically nature of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is the sunam bonum of all knowledge. And that's the conclusion of Bhagavad Gita, that, okay, you have some understanding of spirit and this and that. So understand that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the supreme spiritual being, and that all living entities are meant to be engaged in his service. So the material body is meant for that endeavor. And then when one acquires that knowledge, one utilizes that knowledge and engaging in devotional service. But the problem is that there's a war going on in the material world, which there's information to the contrary. There's propaganda that one can be happy and engaged in activities separate from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One can be happy by just enjoying himself. One can be happy by, whatever it is. The main thing is that the propaganda in the material world, especially in Kali Yuga, is to dissect the Supreme Personality of Godhead and in so many different ways, specifically his form and the relationship with the jiva to the Supreme Personality of Godhead in loving service. So the propaganda, especially in Kali Yuga, is to cut that out and to replace it with full-blown hedonism, which is evident so much in society today. So I'll read a couple verses from the Bhagavad Gita, the Bhagavatam, which highlight this point of the misplaced information of sense gratification. So you can pull it up if you want. It's in the fifth canto, 5th chapter. I'll read text 4 and 7, just a translation of those. So anyways, you can do the index if you want. So this is a famous verse that Srila Prabhupada quoted very much. And I like this verse a lot also. And I have some special realization of this, which I'll share too. So, Nunam pramata kurute vikarma yed indriya pritaya aprinoti nasadu manye yata atmano yam asan apikleshada asadeha. So, just note a couple things. So specifically, this yed indriya pritaya. So I'll speak on that later towards the end of the class, this indriya priti. So the translation is, when a person considers sense gratification the aim of life, he certainly becomes mad after materialistic living and engages in all kinds of sinful activity. He does not know that due to his past misdeeds, he has already received a body, which, although temporary, is the cause of his misery. Actually, the living entity should not have taken on a material body, but he has been awarded the material body for sense gratification. Therefore, I think it not befitting an intelligent man to involve himself again in the activities of sense gratification, by which he perpetually gets material bodies, one after another. So this is I remember, years and years ago, before leading up to the 5th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, I would always hear these verses quoted, Rishabhadev's teachings, and I was so fired up to get there and let's do it, let's read these. And I actually was reading through all of these the other night, a couple of days ago, just reading the translations and stuff and looking at the Sanskrit. But I was really fired up about it, because then it's if regularly hearing Prabhupada's lectures and reading his books, he quotes so much this first verse of this chapter about one shouldn't be a hog and a dog enjoying sense gratification. What is this? How does it start off? Sri Raja Vacha. Anybody know? Nayam Deho Deho Banjam Niloke. Thank you. So, so I was really fired up to get to this chapter and read that. And I remember a couple of times too, even when I read that, I would go. I've read this chapter a lot, but I would go through and reread that. And there's a lot of different points that Rishabhadev makes in his teachings, which are amazing. So specifically with this verse, I remember one year in Chicago, I was working at Lollapalooza, which is just like, just like any other like, music show in like some downtown city. Just like people just getting like crazy drunk and wild and like, was enjoying themselves, feeling good and doing it. So I remember I was down there and it was just like so difficult. And I mean, I did like decent, for like an event like that. And I was just out there all day. I remember it was just people were just rushing. It was difficult to stop them. And it was just tough. And then I was just like slugging it out. And I remember there was 2 other devotees with me, and then they all just gave up. They're just like, it's too tough. Like, well, we're going back to the van, or we're just going to go back to the temple. Like, whatever. Like, forget this. Anyway, so like I was down there all day. And, the people were just being nasty and everything. And then, like, somehow, this verse came to mind that, like, when I was out there and just seeing all the people just, like, being nasty and running here and there just to, get drunk and enjoy this music, I was thinking that this is actually what the situation is, that there's, nunam pramata kurite vikarma, that they're mad and pursuit of the performance of just like vikarma, sinful activities, all for the pursuit of sense gratification. So one is crazy already. It's crazy to engage in the pursuit of sense gratification, but people don't have knowledge of like what is right and what is wrong, so then they go after sense gratification. And I think he makes that point in in the text after this or whatever, but kind of paraphrasing that. But people just don't understand that they don't see like, what is the problem, like, if I go out and just get like completely drunk, or like, if I have sex with anybody and anything, like what's the problem with that, if I gamble or this or whatever, or something as simple as, somebody, what is the problem, like, if I get married and I work a good job and I'm, honest and, truthful, and I have my wife and kids and I upraise them nicely, like what's the problem with that? I don't tell a lie, I don't break the law, I'm a good, honest citizen. So what's the problem with all that? And so the problem with all that is that, whether one engages in completely like, crazy sinful activities, or one is just, whatever. They're living a life, but it's devoid of Krishna consciousness, and there's no interest in devotional service. It's something like Prabhupada would give the example of the thief that steals a cucumber or steals a diamond. So obviously, if you go and steal a diamond, like you're going to do some serious jail time. If you steal like a cucumber or like whatever, like with something else, or like a potato, like in a shopping market, you're still a thief, whether, both are thieves. One is obviously greater than the other one, but both are criminals in the eye of the law, in the eye of the law. So similarly, in the universal management of things, whether one is just, living a life, a quiet atheistic life, or one is, outright just killing people, this and that, both are considered improper because they haven't utilized the human form of life properly. So that's the point. That's the problem. Because the thing is that one may be in this life, a nice, honest householder or whatever it is, or going out and working their job and providing for their family, and taking care of their grandparents and doing all these so-called pious things, but one doesn't know what his next life will be actually. And the way that things work in the material world is that if one gets into bad association, one's life can change very quickly, actually. However pious one may be, or one may get implicated in certain things. Just like there's so many different things like that. But there was one case of one man. Anyways, without getting all the details, he was given a business offer. There was a couple people that were given. He was given a business offer, and pretty much, he was told that, that if you invest in this business opportunity, and like it's like once in a lifetime, and this and that, and like all you got to do is just like give me like whatever, like couple like $100 million, and like. Anyways, it's a whole long story, but it was like, it was like a really like good business offer. And so like it made sense, and like if you look into it and stuff, it like, it was good. But the thing was that the guy was just like a ruse. He was a freaking scammer. And so anyways, he like gypped this guy off of like a couple $100 million. And so, but he was telling the guy that like, if you just invest in this, like I'm going to like give you like personally like $10 million. And the guy was in charge of like, the guy was working for a bank. So he had like access to like all this money. And so the bank was like looking for investments. And so anyways, this guy did that and got gypped off. And so, so that guy got arrested. The guy that, gave that, whatever, the millions of dollars to this guy. And so, he was thinking that, by doing this, like, I'm doing this and I'm doing this investment and it's going to help the company and then I'm going to get so much out of this and they're going to promote me and this and that. And like, he seemed like, like he was doing the right thing. But the thing was he wasn't doing the right thing because he had, mistake of knowledge. And so he became a criminal, actually. He screwed up. And so he went to jail for like 10 years, And so that's the thing, that somebody, we don't know what's going to happen in the material world. We may be thinking, I have my job, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. But the material world is a very dangerous place. Padam padam yavi padam natation. So unless one comes into the platform of Krishna consciousness, one is in a very risky situation. And then there's also the example given in the Srimad Bhagavatam of King Nriga, who was, giving charity, and then somehow or other by the will of Providence, one of the cows that he gave in charity came back. And so the two Brahmanas got into a fight about that. And because of that discrepancy, he had to become a lizard. And he had to suffer. And ultimately, he was saved by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and then he was allowed to enjoy in the heavenly planets. Because that was the other, because he engaged in so much pious activity. But the thing is that, that a living entity may be engaging so hard to do the right thing in the material world, but by providence or whatever circumstance, one may do some papa or some sin unintentionally. So what to speak of people who are trying to live pious lives, they may also have to suffer. And then it's just the material world. I mean, whether you're pious or not, there'll be suffering. Just like a city, so many people are living in the city, some are, living on the streets doing whatever, and then some are, living in their house. But when a tornado comes, it's everybody suffers. Or there's some drought or something. It's like collective karma. Everybody has to suffer. So the material world, as Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur would say, is no place for a gentleman. So I'll read also this couple verses down. This is the 7th verse, similarly of the same chapter. So the Sanskrit is Yada na pashyat yatha guneham svarte pramata sahasha vipashit gatasmatir vindati tatratapan asadya maitunyam agaram anjaha. So there's a lot of nice little Sanskrit words there. So this pramata comes up again, this madness. So continuing, even though one may be very learned and wise, he is mad if he does not understand that the endeavor for sense gratification is a useless waste of time. Being forgetful of his own interests, he tries to be happy in the material world, centering his interests around his home, which is based on sexual intercourse, and which brings them all kinds of material miseries. In this way, one is no better than a foolish animal. So Rishabhadev is, really making the point and like giving the instructions to his sons. And the thing is that it's in the context of Rishabhadev speaking, it's a serious thing. I mean, when one is giving instruction, it's, especially spiritual instruction of how to live one life and how to attain the goal of life, it's a serious subject matter. It's not just like, Rishabhadev is sitting there and just like, anyways, if you guys like care to hear, like, here's that, and like, take it or leave it. It's not like a take it or leave it. It's like, you take this. I'm giving this, I'm going to force you to take this. And so sometimes one may speak in a very sharp way in order to jolt the intelligence and kind of like make one wake up to the gravity of the situation. And, like we see that with King Prachini Barishat and Narada Muni, that, Narada Muni gave them this like beautiful analogy, very poetic, that there's a city, and in this city there's this man, and then this man is walking along in the city, he's wandering, traveling around. And then he meets this beautiful young girl, and she has these servants with them, and she has this serpent, and then the servants have servants, and then they enjoy in this city and the different gates, and then like this, and then he gives this whole story. I'm not going to give the whole story. So the story is an analogy that, the king that's in the state or the city is a living entity, and then he sees this beautiful woman. So it's the living entities, it's this mentality to enjoy sense gratification. There's a snake there, which is the life heirs, and then there's these servants with the senses, and then their servants have servants, which are like the senses. They have their desires. And then the different gates are the different senses. So, and then the whole city is the body. So the living entities enjoying in the body. And then there's fever, which comes, which is I think Chudda, and then anyways, I forget the different names. But then time comes, and the days are going, but the living entity doesn't see that he's engaged in sense gratification. And then even the wife is seen as like the good intelligence and stuff like that. So it wasn't that Narada Muni was just trying to tell him some amazing story, like he'd been sitting there, just like we have people nowadays, these famous books like Harry Potter, that's a famous one, and then you're talking the other day about that Twilight book. So all these like bestsellers, thrillers and things. And then there's so many others too. There's Lord of the Rings, and I don't really know anything else. I'm sure there's other ones. Anyways, there's other classics too, whatever. There's like, anyways, sorry, but like A Tale of Two Cities and like stuff like that, whatever. They're considered classics in like English history, But anyways, Sukadeva Goswami's opinion of all that is that it's is useless literature. That's the verdict of Srimad Bhagavatam. That the people in society have so many subject matters from here. Was it Sahasra? Did anybody remember that verse? Yeah, I don't remember it. So many times I chant about it, I don't remember them. Second canto, I think, second verse. It's Sukadeva Goswami explaining that in society that the people have so many subject matters for hearing. Anyway, I don't think anybody knows it. You can look it up and let me know. I think I remember Sahasra, that's in there. Anyways, you pull up. But he explained that there's so many subject matters for hearing, and anyways, it's just useless. You have it? Oh, it's up there. Sotadini radana niram santi sahashat apashyatam atmatafa griheshu grihamedinam. So he's explaining that people that they're blind, they have so many subject matters of hearing. So there's so many different books which are devoid of Krishna consciousness that people have affinity for hearing. So Narada Muni wasn't trying to make the a Penguin's classic or New York Seller's best author of the year or something. So he spoke this allegorical story to King Prachini Barishat, and then towards the end, he, just to make his point clear, he's pretty much says, "I'm talking about you." And he gets like very clear that you're engaging in doing these sacrifices, but you don't realize that these animals, they're just waiting to get at you when you die. And he really makes the point that that there's a deer. He's like, show me where that deer is in the forest. Can you pull that verse up? Actually, I don't know if I can find it. Maybe you just it's in the fourth canto. I'll try to pull it up also because it might be. It's in the fourth canto. I think chapter 27. No, it's in chapter 29. I'll find it and tell you real quick. I think it's like verse 40 or something. You could maybe just type in deer too, and you might be able to find that also. Oh, I think I almost found it. Okay, so 53. So Narada Muni just like really makes the point. Let me see here. And so he says here, so my dear king, please search out that deer who is engaged in eating grass in a very nice flower garden along with his wife. That deer is very much attached to his business, and he is enjoying the sweet singing of the bumblebees in his garden. Just try to understand his position. He is unaware that before him is a tiger, which is accustomed to living at the cost of another's flesh. Behind the deer is a hunter who is threatening to pierce him with sharp arrows. Thus the deer's death is imminent. And then the next verse is also heavy, but we're going to read it anyways. My dear king, woman who is very attractive in the beginning, but in the end very disturbing, is exactly like a flower, which is attractive in the beginning and detestable at the end. With women, the living entity is entangled with lusty desires and enjoys sex, just as one enjoys the aroma of a flower. He thus enjoys a life of sense gratification, from his tongue to his genitals. And in this way, the living entity considers himself very happy in family life. Uniting with his wife, he always remains absorbed in such thoughts. He feels great pleasure in hearing the talks of his wife and children, which are like the sweet humming of bumblebees that collect honey from flower to flower. He forgets that before him is time, which is taking away his lifespan with the passing of day and night. He does not see the gradual diminishing of his life, nor does he care about the superintendent of death, who is trying to kill him from behind. Just try to understand this. You are in a precarious position and are threatened from all sides. My dear king, the next verse, just try to understand the allegorical position of the deer. Be fully conscious of yourself and give up the pleasure of hearing about promotion to the heavenly planet by fruitive activity. Give up household life, which is full of sex, as well as stories about such things, and take shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead through the mercy of the liberated souls. In this way, please give up your attraction for material. In this way, please give up your attraction for material existence. So the sadhus, they speak in this sharp way to jolt up the living entity so they realize their position. So Narada Muni spoke in this way to King Prajini Barishat. He's speaking about a deer and this and that, and then I'm talking about you. You're engaged in these sacrifices. You come from such a great dynasty with Dhruva Maharaj and Prithu and all these great kings who went on back to Godhead. So you also go back home back to Godhead. Don't waste your life away in performing these sacrifices and just centering your house. Just simply enjoyed with sex life. Wasting your time away. Engage in devotional service. Give this up. And so these sadhus, they speak in this way. And so just like we're reading this verse previously, that one is mad if he doesn't. He may be living. They be very learned and very wise. And we see that very much nowadays. There's so many people that are very intelligent and very wise and all these things. But they still, unless they understand that sense gratification has a beginning, middle, and an end, and is not in our best interest, they're not intelligent, according to Srimad Bhagavatam. Intelligence isn't measured by how many facts and figures one can spit off, or whatever the case may be, or whatever great technological advancements or or theories that one may promote in the scientific theorem, or whatever it may be. The intelligence is understood in Srimad Bhagavatam by one's character. If one has good character, then one is intelligent, and then one is qualified to receive knowledge. If one doesn't have good character, then one isn't taken up to receive knowledge or to be taught, because it's understood one will misuse that knowledge. And just like I was telling Abhidut the other day, and it's something that struck me, but we see that, in society with the advancement of technology and so many different innovations from, the printing press and photography and all these things to technology, that generally what happens that people develop these things and then it just kind of just slithers down into just, gross sinful activity. And people utilize these different technological advancements pretty much just for pornography. And it's because that their hearts they're impure and they're attracted to sex life. So whatever, people may, do this whole, we're developing technology and this and that, we're doing all these great things, but pretty much, they develop some high cutting edge technology and then people just use it just for sex life. That's pretty much what just goes down, and that's it. People, there's Bhakti Vikas Maharaj was talking about previously, people would make art. So it was landscapes and things like that. And then it came down to just making art of just naked women. And then it's, what the heck is that? It's disgusting. And so it's it's very artistic and but it's just pornography. It's just a little bit sophisticated. But what to speak of then? Nowadays it's just nasty, gross things. So this is the problem, actually, and this is what it boils down to. So people, they have this intelligence, but then they just misuse it. And then as Rishabdev says, one is no better than a foolish animal. And that's the thing, that an animal is only interested in eating, sex, defending, and what's the other thing? Sleeping. Some animals like to sleep more than others. And so that's the animalistic propensity. And then we can see that, people, just like I remember one time there was an article in University of Miami, big prestigious school, you had to spend so many hundreds of thousands of dollars to go there, just to get to become a certified ass. So, they had developed this amazing technology by which, they had, I forgot what they call it. But anyways, pretty much it was just like an $8,000 chair that you could nap in. And so it was like really pucker. Like you get in that chair and I think it like closes and like, you like take like a superpower nap in there and it has like music or stuff. But anyways, it's an $8,000 like bed that you could just sleep in. And so that, but there's this whole article about how they use the technology and how you get like amazing rest and all these different things like that. But it's just, it's animalistic. And then, like so many different ways they utilize technology for sex life is crazy. And then, eating, and then so many people eat so many different things and then whatever. Then like, I know Chinna was, like specifically with the increasing of logistics. So they, with the milk industry, so milk only lasts for like a couple days, like generally. And then if you heat it up, it lasts for longer. So there was a problem in previous days with transporting milk because, it only lasts so long. So like, if you have, milk in, North Carolina and you want to get it all the way to California, you can't do that, What to speak of, like, why keep cows over there? Like, what do we want to keep cows for, There's people, cows are for eating, this sinful mentality. So then they came up with an idea that, well, what you can do with the milk is that if you heat it up at a super high temperature and then you like push it through this machine and like homogenize it and you ultra pasteurize it and squeeze all that fat out of it and just completely kill whatever good bacteria is in there, then milk can last for like months and months on end. And then, and then if you take stuff and then if you can it, like, you can have like some beans which last for, practically eternity. They'll have to put that in the Bhagavad Gita, that the soul is eternal and this and that. They'll say the canned beans are eternal. They will always be. They'll never cease to be. Never was a time when those beans were perishable, and never will there be a time. And just like that, so that it's like everything lasts forever. And then they see, they see we're innovating. This is technology. So now we have these cars, and then milk lasts for months on end. But the thing is, the so-called technological advancement has made things worse. Actually, and Prahlad Maharaj makes that point. What is this? Yasmat priya viyoga sayoga janma. So he explains that, like, we try to make adjustments in the material world, but the thing is that we make these material adjustments, and then they're more worse, actually, than the adjustment in itself. It just causes more misery. And so and then also too, without getting so much into information, but then they've done all these things with the milk to try to make it last longer and get more milk, but then you get cancer from drinking the milk because it has all these hormones in it. It's like, we got a bottle of milk last night from the store, and it says on there, like, no synthetic hormones or what is these other things and all the, like that. And then they also make the point that there's no proof actually that, like, cows that get the hormones and don't, there's no like scientific proof that that's bad for you. But they're just cheating. And so then the people have that cheating mentality, and then they want to make money. So then they have to cheat the public, and then they give them all this nonsense stuff. And just, anyways, there's so many different examples of that. So then they eating, sleeping, mating, and then defending. People before were defending, with bows and arrows. Now we defend with atomic bombs that, one bomb drops and can blow up a city, or drones, or all these different things like that. And all these like crazy like weapons that they have. The Defense Department, so many billions of dollars go into that. Probably more too, because generally, like, I'm sure they classify some things. So then that's it, and then our Baba would say, this is a sophisticated animal society. So this is what people are engaged in, that they don't have an understanding of the value of the human form of life. So I want to I'll bring up a next verse. This kind of like synthesizes everything. Let me see here. So you don't have to pull this up. Well, actually pull this up because it's very important. So this is from the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Leela, chapter 4, text 165. So if you don't remember anything I say in the class from before and after this verse, just remember at least this verse. So Atmendriya Priti Vancha Tari Balikam Krishnendriya Priti Icha Dhari Premanam. So the translation of that is, the desire to gratify one's own senses is kama, lust. But the desire to please the senses of Lord Krishna is prema, love. So this is the central point, is that the desire to gratify our own senses is lust. But the desire to please Krishna's senses, that is prema. And that is what this verse is talking about and highlighting. That Brahmaji has the desire to satisfy the senses of the Lord, along with other great devotees. He mentions here Naradaji, Vyas, that their purpose is pleasing the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And so because of that, then so many activities and things result as a byproduct of that. And he specifically mentioned here what these point is that these living entities, or these servants, Brahmaji, Narada, and Vyas, that they have that their purpose and they're busy to bring devotees back to the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality Godhead and away from, as Prabhupada says here, the field of sense gratification. And so this verse is so important, actually, because the thing is, we can judge our whole life actually by this sloka and this verse. Are we, the desire to gratify our own senses or the desire to gratify Krishna's senses? And we have to be guided accordingly. And there's other things I wanted to say, but I'll kind of just chop it down. But if you get time, if you read the last purport of this paragraph, it's really amazing, actually. Prabhupada breaks it down, like so many acts of sense gratification. He makes the point that, that I'll read some of it, but the author of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita asserts with authority that sexual love is a matter of personal sense enjoyment. All the regular principles in the Vedas pertaining to desires for popularity, fatherhood, wealth, and so on are different phases of sense gratification. So it may even be in the Vedas, but if it's not properly aimed at solely serving, pleasing Krishna and his pure devotees, it's sense gratification. And some people may not like to hear that. And then so many things Prabhupada mentions: public welfare, nationalism, religion, altruism, ethical codes, biblical codes, health derivatives. It's huge lifts he gives: fruit of action, bashfulness, tolerance, personal comfort, liberation from material bondage, progress, family affection, or fear of social ostracism or legal punishment. But all these categories are different subdivisions of one substance: sense gratification. So we have to understand, this sense gratification, it comes in so many different shapes, sizes, forms, this and that. Even we think, well, how's it, I'm scared of being, outcasted from society, It's like, you won't even think that's sense gratification, like when I first read that. But it's a form of sense gratification. Being kicked out of society or legal punishment. Sense gratification. Because what's the point? That one is fearing being kicked out of society, materialistic society, because I won't be able to enjoy his senses. If I'm locked up in the jail, or how the heck am I gonna I'm not gonna be able to have watch TV, my favorite TV shows, so they'll be in jail. So it's like one is constantly thinking on that platform of sense gratification, and so this verse here makes a point. And this is also very important. Atma Indriya Priti, for the pleasure of one's own senses. And then we have Krishna Indriya Priti, for the pleasure of the Lord's Krishna senses. So this Atma Indriya Priti, so this Priti, as Prabhupada translates that in many places, but it's like love, happiness, affection, satisfaction, that. So the whole point of Krishna consciousness is we're trying to transfer ourselves and others this priti, this attraction, this happiness that one feels from engaging in the senses to the engaging in the senses of Krishna. This Krishna Indriya Priti, Krishnendriya Priti, Atmendriya Priti. So we're trying to transfer that propensity, this happiness, this priti, the satisfaction that one feels for Krishna. That's the point of Krishna consciousness. And this is epitomized in this verse by Brahmaji, of he's understanding that point that what does it say here exactly? That so on the disappearance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hari, who is the object of transcendental enjoyment for the senses of the devotees. So that particular point there, that Krishna is the object of transcendental enjoyment. Not that we are trying to enjoy Krishna, that is also sense gratification to think that, I can enjoy Krishna or whatever, but we're trying to be enjoyed by Krishna. That's the proper mentality. So we have to understand this properly and be guided accordingly. And so, just also too, and Prabhupada makes the point at the end of this purport, kind of wrap up now, But he makes the point that so when we're freed from the disease condition, then we see the beauty of the Lord, we hear His glories, and act on His account. And so there should be some change of heart in Krishna consciousness. If we're repulsed from hearing about, reading the Bhagavad Gita or hearing about Krishna or attending Srimad Bhagavatam class or whatever it is, but we're only inspired to sleep, then there's a problem in our Krishna consciousness. We should hear about Krishna. And naturally, if we hear about Krishna and we speak about Krishna, there'll be some happiness within the heart. And without pulling it, just to kind of summarize things, we see also Maharaj Ambarish, he also shows that. This verse in the Bhagavatam, that he engaged his mind in thinking about Krishna and walking to the temple and massaging the bodies of the devotees and speaking about Krishna, taking prasadam, all these different things. We see Juba Maharaj also, that he was very inspired for getting a kingdom greater than his grandfather, great-grandfather, Brahma, his great-grandfather. And so when he engaged in devotional service, and once he got purified, he realized it was just useless. But then that change of consciousness came. Specifically, it's mentioned when he was touched by the conch shell of the Lord, that then he became absolutely purified. And I may be messing out some details, but then after that he offered prayers to Prashini Garbha, that particular form of Vishnu that came to see him. And we also see too where Chitraketu. That Chitraketu was, very much attached to family life. Trying to get a son. He had so many wives, and then he got a son. And after getting the son and losing it, he was able to take to heart to the instructions of the sages, and then he engaged in Krishna consciousness and saw the Supreme Personality of Godhead face to face, and became a pure devotee. And so this point of pleasing our senses or pleasing Krishna's senses is a very fine line, and we have to always be on guard on that. And so the association there and the shastra is there. And I'll read one more verse here. You don't have to pull this one up, but this is also another famous verse that Prabhupada would quote, and we should make it a point to learn this verse. So sarvapadi vinir muktam tatparatvainam nirmalam harishikena arishikesha sevanam bhakti uchate. And so the translation is, bhakti or devotional service means engaging all of our senses in the service of the Lord, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the master of all the senses. When the spirit soul renders service unto the Supreme, there are two side effects. One is freed from all material designations, and one's senses are purified simply by being employed in the service of the Lord. So specifically here, let's see here. So Krishna is the master of the senses. So if we engage our senses in the service of Krishna, we'll get purified, we'll be free from all the material designations, and we'll be happy, we'll be satisfied. But the thing is that we have to engage the senses in Krishna's service. There's no question of purification was devoid of Krishna consciousness. And so also too, just to highlight this point, just to read this, but Prabhupada quotes here in the text, he mentions about the devotee of the Lord. So similarly, if we engage if we see the devotees, if we worship, if we glorify the devotees, if we cook for the devotees, whatever we do, if we engage our senses similarly in the service of the devotees, that is also purifying. And that is recommended from the conditioned state to liberated state also. It was a Gopi Bhakta Kamalalora Dasadas Anudas, to always remain a servant of the devotees. And then also to Chitraketu in his next birth, as Vritasura, he prays like that. It was that Aham Hari Tava Padaika Mula Dasano Daso Bhavatasim Bhuyaha Manashmari Tasha Pater Gunam Stakrinita Vat Karma Kodo Tukayaha. He's praying that he can always be engaged in the service of the devotees of the Lord. I just pull that verse up also. Maybe actually not, because I have to find it. But I know it's in the 6th canto, the chapter is the transcendental qualities of Vritasura. Let me see here. If you don't have to pull it up, but anyways, it's canto 6, chapter 11, and then text, I think 24. 24. So anyway, just read the translation, and then if anybody has any questions, we can take them. or comments. So, O my Lord, O Supreme Personality of Godhead, will I again be able to be a servant of your eternal servants who find shelter only at your lotus feet? O Lord of my life, may I always become their servant, so that my mind may always think of your transcendental attributes, my words always glorify those attributes, and my body always engage in the loving service of your lordship. So association and devotees naturally means there's going to be, topics about Krishna. There's going to be devotional service. There's going to be prasadam. Just like, anyways, without getting into mundane example, we'll stay transcendental. But if there's some devotees and like, hey, we're going to have like a party, and it's like, great, there's going to be like prasadam, there's going to be like kirtan, there's going to be all these like amazing Krishna conscious activities. So, if we become the servant of the devotees, and then naturally, and then that's also, Krishna makes that point, that, he's not in all these different places, but he's where his pure devotees are glorifying them. So if we want to be with Krishna, then the best place is to be with his devotees, because that's where Krishna's going to be. So if anybody's got any questions or comments about anything, I'll end there. So, Hare Krishna.
Prabhu, just a comment on some of the points you're making from the 5th canto, that verse you cited. And the translation is really interesting, because it said there that one shouldn't waste their life like a hog and a dog like that, and one who has been awarded a material body shouldn't misuse it.
Yeah.
And it's an interesting way to put it, because being awarded a material body, usually think of like an award, okay, like this is something good.
Yeah.
But you've been awarded a material body, it's like, oh God, like, what have I done,
Yeah.
The material body is, but it's nice, because obviously it's meant for self-realization.
Yeah.
That's an obvious statement, but I was just thinking more about that translation as one who has been awarded a material body.
Yeah.
Have to use it for the right purpose.
Yeah, there's that verse, labdwa sugdwa lamin idam sahubam vamante, that you've achieved this rare human body, so now like utilize it. So that's also there. So let's see. So, all right, I got you on the mic, Mahotsa Prabhu.
Pranam Prabhu, Hare Krishna. So I was thinking, I was reading this in the Bhagavatam just 1 or 2 days ago, where Prabhupada writes, and this is in regards to Prajapati Daksha. He says, persons who are too sexually inclined and materialistic become so hard-hearted because of a slight loss of prestige that they can tolerate even the death of their children. We see this, that people who are too sexually inclined, too materialistic, they become so, they can even tolerate the just a slight loss of prestige, they can tolerate the death of their own children.
Yeah.
You see so many people like, I'm pregnant, and then if I'm pregnant, I won't be able to go up the corporate ladder. Therefore, let me kill my own child.
Yeah.
This thing, it just goes on so much. It's just crazy. And I was also thinking, that it was $8,000 nap chair or whatever the hell it is. It sounds crazy.
Yeah.
But I think it's for us, Ramachari life is so blissful, that we work so hard that everything we eat is like sweets. And we eat sweets also. Yeah. And then, it's almost like we're always living in a fort, because we're always surrounded by devotees.
Yeah.
They're like the protectors, And, when we work so hard that we're so tired that when we lie down on our yoga mat on the floor, it's like this luxury deluxe bed.
Yeah.
It really is. And I was thinking also, about that, as preachers, as someone who has the medicine, it's our duty to preach the absolute truth. For example, yesterday this guy, we never met him in our life. Janardhan Krishna Prabhu and Bhakti Jacob met him once. We went into his house. He just let us into his house. He let us stay there the night. And the next morning, and he has a really good house in Tampa. It's humongous, it's really huge, and he's really well to do. But then, I was sitting there, I was thinking like, okay, this is nice, and if I just told him he's a very great guy, he'll definitely let me come back here. But I don't know, well, what's the point? What's the point of just like, trying to be nice to people and see them go to hell, So then, we preached to him, we told him, Sai Baba is bogus. You have to get rid of this nonsense crap. What's wrong with you? Your ancestors never worshipped him. Sai Baba was a beefeater and a drunkard. Not a drunkard, he was a beefeater. I don't know about drunkard, but he's a Muslim fakir. What is this nonsense? Why are you worshipping this rascal? We preached to him heavily, and the guy immediately, he's like, you know what, you're right, I didn't know about this. Thank you so much for informing me. And he immediately, I said, can we take all the cyber pictures out of your house? And we took him out of the house, and we returned him to his ashram, the trash can, and we dumped this whole thing there, and at the same time, the other devotee who had introduced our brahmacharis to this person was like, don't preach to him, don't tell him anything, just be, he's favorable, the relationship will be made. What's the use of maintaining a relationship if you can't preach the absolute truth,
Yeah, exactly.
You were making the point of Narada Muni, telling Prachina Parikshit, this is you who I'm talking about. He told him, this is you, this is pertaining to you. So, if we don't go and preach the absolute truth, then it just becomes, what's the use of his preaching? What's the point? What did he achieve? What is the whole point of it? It's completely useless, So it's better that we preach the absolute truth and take full shelter of Krishna rather than stay on the mental platform of the non-devotees and stay under the shade of a cloud which is moving across the sky, which is temporary, So I was just thinking there.
Joy. Thank you for sharing. You had something to do? Somebody else. Just one comment to what Moses was saying. But there's also an example of, I don't want to say who, but one great devotee on our line that when they were doing his father's rituals for his father has died, he was hurrying up the priest to get it done so he could go and engage in sex. Actually, he's a great devotee actually, but that history is there. So if you know who I'm talking about, then yeah. But anyways, I don't want to mention. Prabhupada said it. There's things there, but I don't want to speak about. He's a great devotee, so I don't want to speak about him in that way. Anyways, this is my personal thing. So yeah, Jitta.
This is something I asked some time ago, but revisited again, because it pertains to the verse you're speaking about. We should not seek to satisfy our senses, but we should satisfy Krishna's senses.
Yeah.
And you mentioned how even enjoying Krishna is, with that mentality, is sense gratification.
Yeah.
My Guru Maharaj, he gave a lecture, maybe a month ago.
Yeah.
Where he mentions Mangal Arti is a great start to the day, and it's actually actually really nice sense gratification, and it's it's okay to enjoy that in some sense,
Yeah.
There's nice prasadam, flowers go around, the music's very pleasing to the ear, you see the beautiful form of the Lord.
Yeah.
And then also obviously prasadam, it's a form of Krishna, and we wholeheartedly enjoy that. So I'm just wondering to what degree is that okay, or is it just a lower, it's good to enjoy Krishna, but it's just a lower platform?
So the thing is that that's that verse, so Krishnendriya Priti. So there is sense gratification or satisfaction in Krishna consciousness, but it's not based on a mundane sphere. So the thing is that there are things in Krishna consciousness which are satisfying, kirtan is satisfying, prasadam is satisfying. There's so many different things that are, satisfying, and one can be happy in performing and that experience sense gratification in Krishna consciousness. But the problem is that when we have a materialistic consciousness, or consciousness becomes covered over, and then we stop doing those things or engaging in those things for the pleasure of Krishna. If we're doing the arti, Mangal Arti, that's a very spiritual activity. But if we're doing the Mangal Arti and we're just thinking that everybody's going to recognize I'm a second initiated Brahmin and I'm so great, or I'm doing this Arti so nicely, then it's we're not doing the Arti for Krishna's pleasure. So the main thing is like whatever we're doing for Krishna's pleasure. So prasadam's there, so we take that as like Krishna's mercy. But then do we avoid certain types of prasadam, I mean, we made for health, but if we have no health problems and it's just like, I don't like potatoes because like whatever, and I don't like this, I don't like that, then that's where we have to kind of like see. But, or whatever, I like this service, I don't like that service. I like, whatever, doing kirtan, but I don't like taking out the trash or cleaning because like whatever. So we have to generally, like, we may not be able to spot those out ourselves, but it's spotted out, like, in the association of devotees. So, but there's sense gratification in Krishna consciousness, but it just it's in a right mentality. We have the right attitude and everything, and the right understanding, and we have the proper association and proper spiritual master and everything, then, like, there'll be full happiness and satisfaction there, bliss and everything. But if there's something, like, some misconception, or we have bad association, or we're getting improper instructions from a spiritual authority or spiritual master, then the result will drift over into this enjoying Krishna mentality. And then there's so many examples of that. I mean, I don't have to name any, but like whatever, like it's just mixed devotional service, and then it's like your career is your devotional service, and then it's like you want to be an IT tech or whatever, or you want to be a fighter, so it's like that's your devotional service, but it's not necessarily like true. So it's just like things like that. That's just like one example. So that's a big, huge topic. I mean, Bhakti Vikas Maharaj speaks on these things a lot. This Prakrita Shatadushini, like he kind of like highlights some of those points there on that too. So, but I was going to ask Madi, it's 9 o'clock, I was going to ask Madi if she had a question and then stop there. So you have some, okay, she has one question. So we'll answer that and then we'll stop.
Hi, Krishna. So with that mentality of course, what's pleasing to Krishna and what's not pleasing to Krishna, I'm really kind of stuck in a place where I don't know what I'm doing is pleasing or not, because obviously I work, and that's basically most of my time, and I obviously don't want to, but I have bills that I've accumulated, so I have to. Who else is going to pay for that? But in the process of all of that situation, it's like I'm getting super fried out, and I don't know if what I'm doing is that. So I mean, of course, I come here. I'm coming to Mangalarati, honoring Prashad, I'm doing everything, but then it's like then I got to go home, and that's like having, what was the phrase, like having one foot in and one foot out, so I'm just asking like help with changing my mentality.
I know what you're saying. I mean, it's like the kind of like the short answer is just like based on time and everything, but like generally, like most people that like practice Krishna consciousness in day and age, like they're not in like the most ideal circumstance. So we may be in a situation like that where it's like it's not like 100% the best, or we have like certain material like obligations or things like that. But whatever situation is, we have to like try the best for like that we can to engage in the process of devotional service, while at the same time like executing whatever like material duties that we may have there. And like if we do that properly, then it may take some time, but then Krishna can make an arrangement that we can engage full time, or even in that situation, like if we're trying our best, then Krishna will be like pleased with that. But the main thing is like as a general thing in Krishna consciousness, we should always have like some senior like authority that kind of like how that we can like speak these things to, and then they can let us know and really give us insight into our own like position, because there may be like so many like nuances here and there. Like some of the devotees, they go to school, and so like that's obviously like a difficult situation, and then just working that out. But then those devotees that do that, they have like the guidance of like different devotees here, like Chandanacharya Prabhu and Vishnuchitra Prabhu, and they kind of like help them in that situation. But we have to make like the best use of the situation we're in, but generally like kind of the details of that will come from like some like the instruction that we get from like someone that's like senior, and then they can kind of like, this is what you're doing, good, okay, you do that, kind of like that. So that's like a simple answer. But if we're following like the instructions of the devotees and we're engaging in the process of Krishna consciousness as best we can, and then naturally we can rest assured that if we're doing everything right and sincerely, and devotees are pleased with us, and the spiritual masters pleased and everything, that we're doing the right thing. We just have to keep maintaining that and keep doing that. So, all right, I'm going to stop there. So, all right, Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Hare Krishna.